Okay, I hope we have most of you back at your laptops or on the earphones. If you guys are walking around, thank you for still being with us here. We have a very interesting next presentation that I know many of you have been looking forward to. Talking about his RELEX experience now is going to be Robert Jenkins, who holds the role as Head of Supply Chain Development at a British retailer that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, called Morrisons. Robert's job is to define and deliver on the system development roadmap to improve shelf availability. He's also considering the task of managing waste, improve productivity and automation, and to give colleagues the right tools to do their jobs. So in conclusion, it sounds like you have enough stuff to do to fill your day, Rob. So I want to say welcome to RELEX Live, and the word is yours if you will have it. Do we have you with us? And would you kindly turn on your camera?
Hi, Ada. I hope you can all hear me.
Hey, Rob. Yes, we can hear you. We are seeing your screen. We cannot see you at the moment.
Okay, hopefully you can now see me and my presentation.
We can see your screen. We can see your presentation.
Can you not see me? That's not necessarily a bad thing.
I don't feel the same way, Rob. This is not even personal. Now? That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you're in the US. So as it has already said, my name's Rob Jenkins. I'm the Head of Supply Chain Development at Morrisons Supermarket. So I've got a relatively short presentation to take you through, which is really just give you a bit of an overview of the Morrisons business. Hopefully most of you will have heard of us, but I appreciate those of you outside the UK potentially won't know much about us. So I'll talk a little bit about our business. I will touch on the COVID-19 response because it seems silly not to, given how much it's dominated all of our lives in the last few years. And then a bit about the technology journey that Morrisons has been on, which I think is important. Important bit of foundation before I talk about then what we've been working with RELEX and other partners on over the last couple of years. So in particular, then I want to spend most of the time talking about the Morrisons and RELEX partnership, in particular 4 key solutions that we've worked together on that have made a really fundamental difference to the way Morrisons has been running its end-to-end supply chain, and then a little bit on what we're looking at next, where we're trying to get to, effectively what's our North Star, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So a little bit of background, a little bit wordy this one, so apologies. The rest of the slides have got far less words on them, but Morrisons is the 4th largest supermarket in the UK. We've got 495 retail stores, and on average, we've got about 11 million customers coming into our stores every week. I think what makes Morrisons different from our key competitors in the UK of sort of Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, etc., is that most of the fresh food we sell comes from Morrisons manufacturing sites and Morrisons farms. So we are the largest fresh food manufacturer in the UK now. So that puts us in a much stronger position through this COVID pandemic, and also as we're in the UK as we face into Brexit. The other thing then that sort of closely links to our manufacturing network that we're really proud of is what we call our Market Street. So again, unlike most of our competitors, if you go into a Morrisons supermarket, we've got butchers, bakers, fishmongers, etc., that provide that skill in store to create fresh food for our customers. So if, for example, you go into a store and you've decided you want to buy some fish, you'll generally find a skilled fishmonger who can give you some advice on the best way to cook it, what other ingredients you might need to buy, etc. We've also, as you'd expect in a large supermarket, we have petrol filling stations, pharmacies, dry cleaning, lots of customer cafes, in fact, over 300 of them. So we've also got the 2nd biggest cafe network in the UK. And again, as you would expect, a large distribution and transport network. So we've got distribution centres all over the United Kingdom, 21 different distribution centres at the last count, and thousands upon thousands of vans and trucks delivering all of that food and groceries across the UK. Another thing that we've increased in the last couple of years is we are now a large wholesaler as well. So we are adding wholesale customers on a regular basis. So our largest wholesale customer is McColl's, who are a UK convenience store who've got over 1,500 different convenience stores across the UK. But we're also providing lots of petrol forecourt convenience stores for lots of different providers. And one other shop that we've got, which presents its unique challenges for us, is one in Gibraltar at the southern tip of Spain, which is taking an inordinate amount of time for me and my team at the moment as we face into what Brexit might mean for the UK and how we get stock to that store. So quickly in terms of COVID. So Morrisons, I think, as an organisation, really stepped up when the COVID pandemic kicked in around March. So we implemented an interim core purpose for the whole organisation that we said was to play our part in feeding the nation. And we've been nationally recognised as a company, and all of our colleagues too, of the tremendous job that we've done in managing to keep the food supply running and making sure that that we've supported some of the most vulnerable people in the UK. So a couple of examples of that, which people like partners like RELEX have done a great job in helping us with, is we've set up something we called food boxes. That went from an idea to implementation in less than 4 weeks, where on our website a customer could, if they were really struggling to get a delivery slot from a supermarket, could buy a food box like pasta, potatoes, meat, fish, vegetables, and some key household items, and delivered to their doorstep the next day. We also set up a call centre in less than 2 weeks, where we were taking orders over the phone from, in particular, older, more vulnerable customers who didn't have internet access, who we took telephone orders for a limited range, and that was locally fulfilled by our stores the same day, delivered to their doorstep by our local store. So just an example of some of the things that we've done and worked exceptionally quickly on. And as supply chain and technologists, I'm sure you can all appreciate there was some considerable work that had to happen in the background there to ensure the supply chain supported that. And again, RELEX were great help to us in setting some of that up. So a little bit about the background of the supply chain at Morrisons. So I think historically it's fair to say that we hadn't invested in technology as much as we should have done. So we had lots of scenarios like manually creating merchandising plans, lots of manually created purchase orders and store allocations, and stores were not controlling their own stock records. So they were being controlled centrally and therefore not necessarily as well as they could have done. And warehouses picking on paper, both across ambient and fresh. So in 2008, a major investment program commenced, really trying to become world-class across the organization in our technology. And the general view we took was, we won't try to build everything ourselves. We obviously look to build middleware and interfaces and more recently then cloud services. But what we wanted to do was find world-class partners who we could engage with, who already have the solutions, and that we could work with on an ongoing basis to help take the company forwards. So where we've ended up with, our master data systems are provided by Oracle. Some of you, I'm sure, will be familiar with Oracle RMS. So that's where we hold all of our master item and location data. We've got warehouse management systems provided by Oracle and JDA, or Blue Yonder as they're now known. And our supply chain systems are provided by a combination of RELEX and Blue Yonder. So in terms of the journey that Morrisons has been on with RELEX as part of that, so the first set of systems that we implemented were space and range systems. So at the time they were known as Galleria, but obviously they've become part of the RELEX family a few years ago. So we started in about 2012 working with Galleria to implement their customer-centric merchandising and foundation services systems to help give our merchandising teams a much stronger platform. I'll go on to that in a little bit more detail in a second. In 2017, we implemented fresh purchase ordering with RELEX, then something that I'll describe in a minute called ambient demand smoothing, and then more recently, a new system for fresh allocations. So as I said a couple of minutes ago, just started talking about this space and range solution. This is less of my speciality area, so please be kind on the questions, albeit I was the project manager for this when it first went live about 6 or 7 years ago. So we worked with the RELEX team to take the RELEX systems, configure them for Morrisons, and build integration back into our Oracle retail systems. We were in a world where we were manually creating every single store plan, every single bay, and we've been able to use the RELEX software to really take some of the effort out of the merchandising teams and do a much better job in terms of planning the space that we've got in our stores. Which has been a real big step on the journey for us to improve our replenishment. I think it's fair to say we haven't been as good as we should have been at continue to upgrade the software. So we've still got this installed on Morrisons servers in our data center. So we'll be looking at enhancing the software. We're already talking to Jason and Tom and the team about how we can upgrade to the latest versions of the range and space software, get that into the cloud, and then look to integrate that into some of the other systems that we've built. So then the first big step then on the supply chain journey, other than merchandising, was fresh purchase ordering. So Morrisons were in a place where our fresh purchase ordering was executed in old legacy mainframe systems. So green screens, I'm sure any of you that have used those will realize that they're not the easiest things to use, and certainly not the easiest things to enhance, and don't really have a user interface over them. So we were looking to partner with an organization that could really help us implement something quickly that would really do a much better job for us. So one of the key reasons that we chose to work with RELEX is the speed of implementation. So we managed to go from signing the contract to getting some products live in 16 weeks, which, when you think about the complexity of a fresh supply chain, that was really impressive. And then we just continued to test and learn as we rolled more and more categories out. That was something that was a real big win for us with the supply chain specialists. So we've got over 100 fresh specialists. So we had to go through a big training journey with those guys. But the feedback we had is that it was such a big step forwards for them, getting away from old mainframe systems and other systems built in Visual Basic to something where the user interfaces were easy to use, they were easy to read, fresh looking, and had inbuilt metrics in them as well that they could use to understand their purchase order volumes. And more recently, we've enhanced the system significantly again this year. So we've unplugged this system from our legacy mainframe, and we're now flowing the purchase orders out through our Oracle retail systems and out to our suppliers, which is a big step on the journey for us to decommission that old mainframe, which is inflexible and expensive. So real big step on the journey for us, that one. The next piece we undertook then in 2018 was something that was called ambient demand smoothing. So one of the big business problems that we had was that the forecasted demand for us to pick in our depots was often either way above our labour capacity or under. And in those scenarios, what we'd end up doing is leaving the decision about what stock to pick in ambient down to the individual shift managers, or sometimes even the individual picker, which was a really suboptimal way for us to do things, because if clearly pickers were picking the products that were easiest for them to pick, not necessarily the right things for customer availability and for sales. So we asked RELEX to help us. So we gave them the business problem and said, what can you do to help us? And what we've worked together to build is a fantastic solution that takes in the sales forecast and the demand forecast. Also then plugs in the depot labour capacity that we've got that day in terms of cases. So maybe it's 100,000 cases in a particular ambient depot, and it uses the forward sales forecast and forward order forecast to maximize the pick based on what's the right product to pick and send to stores for customer availability. That's made a real material difference to us for customer availability, definitely for warehouse productivity and also in sales. And what we found is, whilst this is a really useful tool for us most of the time, so probably a Thursday is our peak day to get product in store and on shelf for the weekend peak. It became exceptionally useful at Christmas. So 2018 Christmas was the first time that we used this, which made an enormous difference to us. And then, as you can imagine, during COVID and panic buying, there were no days when demand was below what our warehouse capacity was. There were times that we had demand 3 or 4 times above what we were able to pick. So it was critical for us to have a system that was able to instruct the pickers, this is the right product for us to pick and send to our stores. So I think that one was another great example of speed and flexibility, that we went from a business problem in August to a solution that was live and fully working by the beginning of December in 2017. So really helpful solution. And then the most recent solution that we've implemented working together is something that we've called fresh apportionment. So this is the way that we allocate our fresh stock out to our stores from a depot. So typically a depot will service anywhere between 70 and 100 stores, just depending on the demographics of that depot. And what we had was an old system that would, in a scenario of under or oversupply, would do a pretty average job of determining what was the best store to send that fresh stock to. So most of our fresh stock at Morrisons is what we call pick to zero. So it will be short life stock, and if it's come in from a supplier, we want to pick it and get it out of the depot and into stores. Because if it's in the depot, it's losing code life, and we're not able to sell it to customers. So we work with RELEX to build a system and a highly complex algorithm that looked at what's the store stock, what's the depot stock, what is the sales forecast, to work out what is the best store to send this stock to maximize sales, maximize customer availability, and minimize waste. And we've added all sorts of extra rules and complexity around that as well, where we might want to prioritize a new store that's just opened, or potentially not send stock to a store where perhaps they've got a fridge breakdown, or we might want to prioritize our wholesale customers or the Gibraltar store. And RELEX worked with us to build some real flexibility into the rules for all of those bespoke scenarios. So we've ended up in a situation where this new algorithm that we've implemented is doing a fantastic job for us and has made a real material difference to our waste bill. So based on rolling this out depot by depot and category by category, gave us the ability to measure the old system versus the new system. And we could see that we are saving more than £5 million a year in waste just by using this the new system with the new algorithm in. So it's been a resounding success and really well received by the business. So that's what we've done so far. So where we're trying to get to next, and obviously working with RELEX to help us on this. So there's sort of 7 key things that we're working on. So as much as possible, we want to automate the production of our merchandising plans, our purchase orders, and our store allocations. So we feel that we've still got too much manual intervention, and we really want the supply chain specialists to be spending the majority of their day working with our suppliers and working with our commercial teams to get the best possible customer availability without having to be in the systems manually amending orders and allocations. So that plays into the second point, which is about having an alert-based supply chain. So what we're looking to get to is getting to purchase orders and allocations flowing through the system without a user touching them, and only intervening when they've gone outside of a particular tolerance. And one of the things that is really going to help us with that is having a perpetual inventory of the stock record. So the stock record is one of our weakest areas at the moment at Morrisons. We have a store mobile device that my team have built where the store control their stock records, but there's still opportunity for us to do a better job there and ensure that there's a real-time view of the stock in a store. So if I go into a store and I scan a shelf edge label, the number that I'm presented with should be exactly what's on the shelf in front of me, whereas we haven't reached that point where it's real time yet. So once we've had that perpetual inventory, what we're really aspiring to do then is to get to a point of real-time calculations. So the RELEX team know that our operational clock and real-time calculations is one of my passions that I really want to get to. So at the moment, the systems are driven by batches, and that's Morrison systems as well. Where we'd like to be in the next few years is that we can throughout the day be constantly taking in sales feeds from our stores and demand from our wholesale customers, and therefore be constantly updating our views on what stock do we need to send to stores and what stock do we need to order from suppliers. So that real-time calculation then will, I think, allow us to reduce our supplier lead times. So that's something that is a big focus for our commercial directors, who really want to be able to order day one for day two for most of in particular our fresh stock, where we're not quite there yet with a lot of our categories. We're still on day one for day three or even further. The other big opportunity for us with a very quickly growing wholesale online and online store pick business is we need to do a better job of integrating our store sales forecasting and store demand in with our third-party demand. So as we take on new wholesale customers quite rapidly, we want to be able to say, okay, this is the profile of this wholesale customer, and get the systems to then automatically calculate for us what those forecasts are, and make sure that we're doing a really great job of fulfilling and delighting not just our wholesale and online customers, but our customers in retail stores too. And then the final piece, which is like, I guess, the end step of the supply chain for us, is to have really strong systematic picking in our depots using robotics where possible. So certainly in ambient, I'm sure that's an opportunity for us to look at robotics, probably a little less so with fresh. We've actually still got a couple of depots that are still picking on paper in fresh at the moment, until we've completed our journey of decommissioning our mainframe which should be the middle of next year. So really keen to have one system across that ambient and fresh network, and to be able to leverage robotics as much as we possibly can. So that's the end of my slides. If I just come out of there. Ida, have we got any questions?
We do. Thank you so much, Robert, for taking us through those. Very, very interesting to hear about the journey, and there are lots of good questions here that I will get started with, and I'm sure there will still be more as we have a couple of minutes still to tackle some questions. The first one is related to food waste. So it's a very specific one on KPIs. So has Morrisons noticed improvements in food waste in the fresh categories as a result of the new system?
Yes, so fresh apportionment, as I mentioned on the slides, we by doing a better job of understanding the propensity to sell stock in a particular store, where we've been in a scenario of oversupply in our depots, which does happen quite regularly given that we manufacture our own product. The algorithms that we've worked with RELEX to build and implement have seen a £5.9 million a year reduction in waste at retail price. So very much a big benefit for us.
Very good. Thank you for confirming. What about, people seem to be very interested in your KPIs. So what about your product stock outs in stores? There's someone even asking if you're willing to share your improvements in the product availability, or if you could at least comment.
Okay, willing to, yes, but I don't have the data to hand, so I couldn't comment specifically. But yes, absolutely. So our customer availability has, I think it's fair to say, in the last few years we haven't been at the top of the top echelons of UK supermarkets. So that's been a big drive for us. So in particular, ambient demand smoothing has helped us a lot in identifying how to fill the gaps in stores. We've also had and this is a non-RELEX related one, an internal issue, but we've had some negative stock records that we've recently fixed. That's made a big difference to us as well. That allowed us then, in fresh in particular, to send the stock to the right stores using the fresh apportionment calculation.
Yeah, it just confirms the message from earlier today about the importance of having correct balances if relying on automatic replenishment.
Yep.
Very good. Further on fruit and veg, people are quite interested in it. Naturally, it's a difficult topic to solve. How do you handle flexible multi-sourcing for fruit and veg? Do you do that in RELEX? For example,
yes.
If you buy tomatoes sometimes from Spain, another time from Holland?
Yes, so we call it supplier splits. That's the term internally. And it's probably fair to say that I gave Tom Charlton a headache when we first started on this journey. This is a tough thing to do, but RELEX built some bespoke functionality for us that has done a really great job in managing that really complex area. So we will typically, if I take strawberries as an example, which is a really popular fruit in the UK over the summer, we will have 5 or 6 different suppliers that we will buy from, and depending on daily commodity prices and crop picks, we will send the purchase orders to different suppliers based on the guidance of our buyers. So that is functionality that RELEX built for us, and it's worked really well, and has been live for the last 3 years, doing a great job.
I'm glad to hear it. I'll tell Tom you said so. He will be happy to hear it. Further on functionality, when demand smoothing, does it work so that you, for example, cut 20% of the order lines on each order, and the system chooses which products not to pick? Is that the way that the smoothing works?
It is, yeah. So with demand smoothing, we've got a sales forecast that the system generates for us, and an order forecast, but most critical is the warehouse and the store stock record. So over a 5-day period, and we can flex that. RELEX built the system with functionality that we could do it further. We punch in what our expected depot pick capacities are by depot. So we've got about 13 different ambient depots across the country. And the system will understand if I'll pick an example where we've got one called Wakefield, which is quite near our office in Bradford. If Wakefield has a capacity of 100,000, but the demand coming out of the system is 150,000, this ambient demand smoothing system will work out what is the best product to pick in the depot to ensure that we are minimizing the gaps in the stores and maximizing sales, so doing the best possible job for customers. So that's where we're in oversupply. Well, we don't have enough labour capacity. It's not happened this year due to COVID, but sometimes it'll go the other way, and we've actually got excess capacity in the depots. So rather than send staff home and tell them not to pick, we will then, what we call it, pull forwards. So we will look at product where we've got a very high sales forecast. Let's say bottled water or toilet paper or pasta, things like that. We will pull forward. We will pick extra cases or pallets of that stock, and we'll send that into stores early, so then they'll maintain that in the back room, just to make sure that we're maximising that labour capacity. So if you imagine we've got thousands upon thousands of pickers across our network, they're a very expensive resource for us. So we absolutely want to maximise what we can get out of those guys and not send them home early.
Yeah, of course, of course. That is extremely interesting, and different ways to work with RELEX in terms of optimizing the workforce. So that's another approach, and I'm sure many retailers are listening with big ears to what you just said, Rob. That's really impressive. You mentioned pharmacies are integrated into some of your stores.
Yep.
Is the data also integrated, and if so, what are the special challenges?
Actually, pharmacy isn't. So pharmacy we manage separately. It's the one area of our business that we don't do automated ordering on. So our pharmacists at the moment are the ones that are placing manual orders for the drugs. It's something we're looking at. It's not a high priority for us at the moment, but it is on our list to have a look at whether we put those in pharmacy products into the automated system.
Clear. Okay, very good. The last system for you, Rob, if you will still take it. You've provided very good answers here. So the last one is, again, about this pandemic. So how would you say that the system has coped with COVID at Morrisons? What interventions were needed to manage supply constraints and demand spikes?
Okay, I think generally the systems have held up really well. In the first few weeks of panic buying, one of the things we had to do was to eliminate all case picks going to a store that were less than 2, or sorry, less than 3. So if we were just going to say, if I take, I don't know, tin tomatoes, for example, if we were only going to get a picker to pick 2 cases to go to a particular store, we work with RELEX to just delete that demand. We had to get absolute maximum efficiency in our depots. So we were trying to pick in bulk as much as possible. So that's an example of where we use the flexibility of the system to help us. Just to give some idea of context, if our depot pick capacity across the network in normal times is about 1 million cases per day, at its peak, the system was recommending that we pick 4 million cases a day just to fulfill customer demand, which firstly we never could because we don't have enough trucks to get it out there, and there was literally not enough stock in the network, and we couldn't get enough stock from our suppliers just because the whole world was panic buying, really. But the system helped us really get to a point where we were sending in bulk items. So in a typical store, perhaps we might have 35 different varieties of pasta of different shapes, you know, Morrisons' own brand, all the different typical brands you'd all be familiar with. In scenarios, perhaps we reduced that down to 8. But so customer choice was limited, but the stock was there, so they could at least buy and feed their families.
Very interesting. Good. That was the topic that we discussed a while back about harmonizing the range. Now, hopefully, that's in the past of our lives and careers. Let's see if it will be that way.
Well, actually, we've seen some panic buying again in the last week. So for those of you outside the UK, we've just introduced some new lockdown measures. So yeah, we've seen demand spike a lot in the last few days.
Our thoughts are with you, Rob. You're in the business and your family, of course. Stay safe, and thank you so much for being with us here today. Thank you for answering all the questions, and thank you to the audience for the good questions.
My pleasure.